Protecting Matt. Let's try this again. From the moment I saw the crime scene, I had a feeling that Matt was the murderer. Would you say that was your intuition speaking to you? Don't confuse my methods of reasoning with your own. Ugh. If you want to prove that someone did something, you need 3 things. 3 things. A motive, an opportunity to commit crime, a motive, an opportunity to commit the crime, and finally, decisive evidence. And if you think these 3 things through, the answer becomes quite clear. You should have already known that, Phoenix. They didn't teach that to us in school, at least not from what I remember. May I continue now? Matt had to kill Juan no matter what. So would you say that this need came from a press conference? Yes. Do you know why Juan chose that event in that hotel for the conference? Because that was when he could cause the most damage to public beloved Matt Engard. And you knew of this plan, didn't you, Miss Andrews? Yes, because I was the one who set up the conference and prepared the costume. But I'm sure Mr. Engard himself didn't know anything about the press conference. Oh, really? Can you show me any proof that he didn't know about the press conference? Anyway, the important thing here is that the information was not in your testimony. Yes, I agree. Miss Andrews, please correct your testimony if you please. Grasping at straws now, are we, Mr. Wright? I know what his motive was, but I don't have any way to prove I'm right. Has Mr. Engard done something to hurt or betray you personally? Why do you ask? You were the one who helped Mr. Kurita with his press conference, and that event was supposed to bring down Mr. Engard, yet you still helped out. The person on trial right now is Mr. Engard Wright. What the witness was thinking helping the victim with his plan is none of our concern. In any case, this means that the defendant had a motive to kill. Why do I keep doing this to myself? Because I'm confused, and you're doing it for me. And he didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder. But didn't you already testify earlier that Mr. Engard was taking a nap in his room? Are you telling me now that, too, was a lie so you could cover Mr. Engard? I'm not telling you anything of the sort. When I went to get him for the show, he honestly was sleeping. However, as to whether he was sleeping the entire time, that I cannot say. I was too busy setting up the stage at the time. I keep trying, but I can find no flaws with what Miss Andrews has said. I can't say the same for the people here in the courtroom, however. The judge is glaring straight at Mia. He's glaring at you, smart guy. My thoughts were confirmed by the evidence, of course, the button and the knife. You can hardly call the knife decisive evidence. The fingerprints on the knife could very well be a clever camouflage. Then, what about the button? The button? It's clear from the crime scene that the victim and his murderer fought, and during the fight, the killer ripped the button from Jammin' Ninja's costume. You're talking about this button, correct? That button was found in the pleats of Miss Matt's hakama, isn't that correct? I would think that makes it very decisive evidence. Ugh. Looks like you were outfoxed again, Mr. Wright. Anyway, the knife doesn't prove a thing. Please fix your testimony. I can't stand the sight of a man who can't gracefully accept his defeat. Thank goodness Mia can still look at me. With an icy stare, yes. Miss Andrews, for Mr. Wright's sake, please add this information to your testimony. That button was torn off the one during his fight with Matt. And how do you know that? When the ends of the threads of the button and the costume were matched up, they were found to fit together perfectly, or so I've heard. I've heard that before too. But why would Miss Andrews know about this case down to such fine details? Don't look at me like that, just because I'm prepared and you are not. Ugh, and I thought I had her this time for sure. If there's anything to trip her up on, it has to be here, but where and what? But I'm Matt's manager, so I felt that I had to protect him. But what you really did was stab the guy in the back, didn't you? And at the worst possible time. Who's to say she really stabbed the guy in the back, as you put it? This witness could have disclosed things about Mr. Engard at any time. Why then would she wait until there was a large audience before doing so? It's the same reason why Mr. Kurita planned such an elaborate conference. Miss Andrews wanted to cause Mr. Engard as much damage as she possibly could. This witness bears ill will towards the defendant. This isn't the Phoenix Wright wax philosophical power hour. And please stop slandering the witness. As I expected, Miss Andrews' testimony seems pretty solid. Really? Because to me it sounded a little wishy-washy. Wishy-washy? Well, I guess we'll see if I press a little more. You should know this by now, but you need strong, decisive evidence to make her talk. Got it, Chief. Okay. This is the victim. I was wondering if that would be it, but it didn't quite fit in my head, but I guess it was right. This is the victim's autopsy report. It clearly states that the cause of death was a strangulation by a scarf. Strangulation? The knife stab to the victim was done after the victim had already died. And what does that mean? Let's examine the evidence. This button has the victim's blood on it, which would mean that it was ripped off the costume when? Yes, this is what I was thinking, but I couldn't put it together in my head with the stuff. After the knife was stabbed into the victim. Exactly. Which means it's impossible that this button was torn off during the victim's final struggle, because the victim was strangled to death in that fight. That's right, Miss Andrews. There is no way this button was ripped off during the struggle. This button was consciously pulled off the victim's already dead body. Make a big button. Order. What is the meaning? What is the meaning of this, Wright? So what if the button was torn off the body after the victim had already died? What does that change? Let me ask you one simple question, Mr. Edgeworth. Why was the button torn off? What purpose did that serve? What purpose? We now know this button was not torn off during the fight, so the murderer took the time and effort to purposely rip this from the victim's body. That would mean that the murderer had something in mind, wouldn't it? Mr. Wright, does this mean you know what the murderer wanted to do with this button? There is only one logical reason for doing something like that. It was to pin the crime on Mr. Engard. There's no way anyone would put a bloody button in their own pants. That's right. Mr. Engard was set up. By the real killer, of course. And the real murderer is? Well, Mr. Wright, who in the world is the real killer then? Finally. I can't believe I managed to bring this trial all the way to this point. Phoenix, you can't let your guard down yet, not until the very end. Real killer, the person who planned to frame Mr. Engard is... I know we're gonna say her. Miss Adrian Andrews. I choose you. You are Mr. Korea's killer. What? Order. Mr. Wright, this is a very grave matter. Do you have any evidence that supports your charge? Any evidence? Bug. All of the evidence points to Miss Andrews. Well, how preposterous. You can't stick any of that on me. I can't, can I? Would you care to test me? Then what about this knife? The knife was used to stab the victim after he had already been strangled to death. It was used to throw suspicion onto Mr. Engard naturally. A knife covered in the defendant's fingerprints could only be taken from his room. And the only one who had dinner with him and knew which knife to take was you. She's got a lot of glasses. Then what about the button that was found on Matt's hakama? This button was removed from the victim's body after he had already died. The only person who could have done so were the person who found his body or the killer. However, if Mr. Engard was the real killer, there is no way he would have put such incriminating evidence in his own hakama. The only person who could have put this button onto Mr. Engard's hakama is the person who went to wake him from his nap, which is you, yet again, Miss Andrews. I see. What about the empty guitar case? That is also another piece of the evidence that incriminates Miss Andrews. That costume we used to hide the real killer's identity as they fled the crime scene. Now, who could have known that there was such a costume inside the guitar case? It could only have been the person who prepared the costume for the victim. And that person is you, Miss Adrian Andrews. No, But Miss Andrews' fingerprints were nowhere to be found on the guitar case. And it was you who proved that she was not wearing gloves at the time. That's right. That's because she did not intend on leaving any prints. If anyone had found out she had touched the case, they would have asked her why. Just got a text from the doggos I'm sitting, and the mom is like, I hope everyone's behaving. Tell Rudy he is fine. He is. And tell Addie that even though she doesn't want to, she has to come home with me tomorrow. So to avoid leaving any prints, she used a towel or something else to open it. But the glass of tomato juice is a different story. Miss Andrews purposefully left her fingerprints on the glass to show that yes, indeed, she was a classic dazed discoverer of a dead body. And to top it all off, there is this photo. A photo of the killer as they exit the scene of the crime. No reasonable person on Earth can believe this nickel samurai is Mr. Engard. He would be much too short for his own costume if it was him. Speaking of how tall people are, Miss Andrews, you're also kind of short in stature, are you not? Please, stop. Well, how about it, Miss Andrews? I've got her this time. Miss Andrews? She's gonna cry. I refuse to testify. What was that? There's a law. It says I can't be forced to testify about something if it can incriminate me. Well, yes. You are absolutely correct, Miss Andrews. The law does provide us with a way to avoid self-incrimination, by allowing a witness to not testify if the testimony can cause damage to themselves. What? Pleading the fifth is not something most people would think to do on the spot. Actually, thinking back to yesterday in Mr. Edengard's room. Adrian Andrews. Yes? Think hard about what we just discussed, understood? Alright. That's it. That's when Franziska planted this idea into her head. She must have told Miss Andrews to not testify if things looked bad. You did a good job proving everything up to this point, Phoenix, but there is still one thing you haven't done. Something I haven't done? What's wrong, Mr. Wright? Are you finished already? Run out of evidence? What is so humorous, Mr. Edgeworth? I'm sure you realize this as well, Your Honor, but everything the good lawyer here has proven up to this point is meaningless. What? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck is going on with my phone? What the fuck? That was weird. Circumstantial? Yeah, circumstantial. You have to yet to prove a single piece of definitive proof. Proof that Miss Andrews did, in fact, harbor a wish to murder Mr. Kurita. Miss Andrews, did you want to kill Mr. Kurita? I believe this may lead me to incriminate myself, so I will abstain from answering. But Miss Andrews, if you do that, it would be the same as admitting your guilt, don't you think? Maybe so, or maybe not. There's nothing to prove it either way. Besides, you don't even know what crime I would be guilty of due to my silence. No, she's taking that defiant attitude again. Mia, what should we do? Somehow, we've landed in the worst possible situation. I think we've reached a certain conclusion at this point in time. Miss Adrian Andrews has refused to testify, and the defense's theory that she is the actual murderer has not been fully substantiated with solid definitive proof. But that's not true. In this situation, there is only one thing the court can do, and that is to declare a recess. Recess? I request that both the prosecution and the defense look further into this matter. Tomorrow's trial. Tomorrow. We don't have tomorrow. If we don't get a not guilty verdict today, then... Please wait, Your Honor. That's not necessary. The trial, please continue the trial. What are you sweating for? How does he not know I had surgery? I guess he wasn't paying attention to my Facebook for a long time. Your client is getting one more day to live, isn't he? That's not it. This isn't about that. Edgeworth, I know you know who the real killer is. Please, let the trial continue. If I don't get the verdict, then Maya... But it's impossible to continue as long as the witness refuses to testify. Now then, this court is... It is not impossible for this trial to continue. Mr. Edgeworth, what are you... It's true Miss Andrews holds the right against self-incrimination. However, if the topic of conversation were something unrelated to whatever she may be guilty of, then she has no right to withhold testimony. Yes, that is very true, but actually, there is one little thing that I'm curious about. Miss Andrews, when you found the victim's dead body, you poured yourself a glass of juice. Yes, and? I can't help but think how unnatural that is. Usually when one finds a body, they are shaken up, not stirring a glass of juice. So my actions were unusual, but I've already... Before you speak, I want to state that if you have a reason behind your actions, I would like you to testify to that effect. Testify? Your Honor, I would like to request that the witness testify again as to what happened when she first discovered the victim's body. Whatever we find out in this testimony should in no way implicate the witness. I don't know what it is about Edgeworth today, but I can't get a good read off him. Is he friend or foe? I just don't know. The court acknowledges the prosecution's request. Miss Andrews, if you please. All right. That glass of juice, I didn't really pour it for myself. I was surprised when I walked into the room and saw it in a messy state. And Juan, he was sitting slumped over and tired looking in the corner. When I saw him sitting like that, the thought that he was dead didn't cross my mind. To be honest, I thought he had just fainted or something, so I just went to pour him some juice. When I realized that he was dead, that's when I knocked the flower vase over. Oh. So you poured that glass of juice for the victim. Why didn't you say so in your earlier testimony? I didn't think I needed to conclude something so trivial. Phoenix, please be careful here. If you can't find anything wrong with this testimony, then there's nothing left. I know. Edgeworth, what the heck is going on with that brain of yours? Alright, cross-examination time. Let's do this. But there wasn't anyone else in the room, right? Of course not. Then who did you pour it for? Mr. Wright, there is a rhyme and reason for everything. Can you wait just a little longer for it to be revealed to you? In other words, Wright, be quiet and listen. Precisely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Ugh. I was surprised when I walked into the room and saw it in this messy state. So it was a mess. Are you sure it wasn't messy because of your fight with Karita? I understand your frustrations of not being able to prove your theory. However, before you go accusing the people of crime, go find yourself some evidence. And then, what did you see next, witness? And Juan, he was just sitting slumped over and tired looking in the corner. Slumped over? Yes. He was just sitting there with his head tilted forward, eyes closed. He really looked like he was sleeping. Is it just me or did that right there sound a little odd? Yeah, wouldn't she have seen the knife? When I saw him sitting like that, the thought didn't cross my mind that he was dead. Then what did cross your mind? I thought maybe he had smashed everything up in anger because he lost the Grand Prix, and then felt tired after his rampage, so he decided to take a nap. Anyways, that's what I thought. I see, so you didn't think he was dead at all. To be honest, I thought he had just fainted or something, so I went to pour him some juice. You thought he fainted? I thought he was asleep at first, but then the room was in such a messy state. I thought maybe he had gotten into a fight with someone. And that's when you went to pour the glass of juice? Yes, he always has a hard time waking up, so one always has a glass of tomato juice to drink. I see, and after that, what happened? I realized that he was dead. That's when I knocked the flower vase over. And how did you come to realize that he was, in fact, dead? If you do the little... We have a Discord for my channel. It's not big because I'm small. But you can join the Discord if you do the little code for it to come up, which is what, the apostrophe Discord or something. Okay. I shook him over and over, but I never got a response. So I set the glass down on the dresser and tried to take his pulse. I was shocked and I staggered backward. I knocked the flower vase over, so that's what happened? Yes. This is what it all comes down to, huh? This is about absolute end for both sides, and Adrian is letting her guard down. Phoenix, now is our best chance yet to kill the prosecution's case. Isn't that a bit harsh? Miss Andrews, will you tell us the truth this time? Okay. So you honestly didn't think he was dead when you found him? No, not at all. Even though this is what you saw when you discovered the body? Yeah. What is the meaning of this? Isn't it obvious, Your Honor? There is a knife sticking straight out of Mr. Farita's chest. Anyone who saw the scene would have immediately thought that the hero was a dead man. That's, well, you see, I doubt a single person in this world would mistake this for someone who fainted, and then so nonchalantly go pour something to drink. Your point is? Miss Andrews, your testimony just now, it was all one giant lie. And your lie has proven one thing very clearly, that you are the real killer. No! Whoa, 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 whoa. It looks like the defense has somehow brought the ugly truth to light. The defendant, Mr. Matt Engard, is not guilty after all. But that's impossible, you're wrong. But Miss Andrews, try to have some composure. It wasn't me, I tell you. It was Matt, I swear it, he's the one who killed Juan. Well, you were the one who refused to testify, and your reason for not doing so is that you might end up incriminating yourself. That's because... Miss Andrews, I will give you one last chance. What exactly are you hiding that may incriminate you? I refuse to testify. And there is no need for this court to continue any further. Mr. Matt Engard's innocence has been clearly demonstrated. Is it over? Have we found the truth at last? What's wrong, Phoenix? Usually the real killer confesses his or her guilt. And now that I think about it, this is the first time someone hasn't. Now then, I would like to hand down my verdict from Mr. Matt Engard.
Objection!
Your Honor, the prosecution feels that it would be premature to pass down a verdict at this time. What? The reason is quite simple. This witness has yet to speak the absolute real truth. The absolute real truth? What are you? Witness, don't you understand yet? Huh? I don't know who planted this silly idea in your head, but as long as you protect yourself through your silence, Matt Engard will go free, and in his place, you will become the guilty party. That's a lie. I don't believe you. What? I was told if I spoke, then it would be all over and Matt would never be declared guilty. What in the world is she talking about? Has she lost it? I can't speak about it. I'm too scared. It's Franziska von Karma. Huh? Don't you remember, Phoenix? Miss Andrews lives gripping tightly on the words of another. Because she doesn't have the strength to believe in herself. Then, right now, Miss Andrews is... Yesterday, she was tossed a lifesaver by Miss von Karma. Don't say a word, no matter what happens. If you do, Matt Engard will be acquitted. Miss Andrews undyingly believes in those words right now and is clinging on to them. Then what should we do? This is the first time I've ever come across anything like this. But Miss Andrews has to be the killer, right? All we have to do now is get her not guilty. That is my only priority. It wasn't me. I'm begging you. Please believe me. I didn't kill Juan. Help me, please. Someone. I don't know. Mr. Wright? Yes, Your Honor? The court can't continue on like this, therefore I'd like to hear what you intend to do. What I intend to do? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? Right, I suggest you think very carefully about this. Think about what this witness did and what she did not do. And think about who is the real mastermind behind this crime. Who's the real mastermind? Isn't that obvious? There's no one else it could be except the woman crying over there, right? Come now, what will you do? What kind of man are you? What kind of man are you, Mr. Phoenix Wright? I had to win a complete acquittal today, there's no way around that, but I can't bring myself to do it like this. Not when she's making a face like that. Miss Andrews, I would like to know what you are really hiding. But Mr. Wright, are you sure you know what you're doing? Sure, Mr. Engard would get an acquittal, but in his place, you would be found guilty. Is this how you really want this trial to end? Be quiet, how dare you? You're trying to trick me. That's enough. I commend you for trying, Mr. Edgeworth. However, it's clear that the defense's theory is the truth. You're wrong. What a shame. I had hoped things wouldn't come to this. However, what is it, Mr. Edgeworth? Miss Andrews, since you absolutely refuse to testify, it falls on my shoulders to disclose this to the court. Stop. Mr. Edgeworth? This witness, how should I put this? She has an illness. What? And because of this illness, she has tried to commit suicide in the past. Stop. Please stop. No matter how much you want to hide it, it's no use. I have the evidence right here. That's the second part of the suicide report, the attempted suicide report. What will you do now, witness? You know what I'm about to do, don't you? I will now reveal to the court the true nature of the pitiful woman known as Adrian Andrews. The secret of her dependent nature. How other people know about it scares her more than anything else in the world. Please stop. I beg you. If people find out, I'll... If you're going to say you would choose death, that is of no concern to me. Edgeworth, how can you be so cold? However, before you die, I will pull the truth from your still breathing lips. No matter what I have to do. So, will you tell the court yourself or shall I? Either is fine with me. I'll talk, but please, help me. Nothing matters anymore. My crime. When I first saw him, I really thought he had fainted. Honest. When I realized he was dead, that was when I formulated my plan. Once I made sure there was no one in the hallway, I made a dash back to Matt's room. And then I stabbed Juan's dead body with the knife and ripped off the button. Just when I finished and was returning to Matt's room, I had a bit of an inconvenience, and that's why I ended up using the Nicholas Samurai costume. A little bit of an inconvenience, she says. Stab the body with the knife? Why would you do that? Isn't it obvious? To pin the blame on a certain person. A certain cowardly man. What do you mean by all of this? It might take this court a little while to understand, but... Shh. This is the truth. The real killer is Matt, that scumbag of a man. I'll never forgive him. Shh. My sweet babies. Call me tits. Hakuna Yatadas. He's trying to escape his guilt again, just like last time. Last time? So Miss Andrews stabbed the victim, Juan Corrida, in the chest with a knife. However, she didn't do it with a murder in mind. She did it with the intent of framing Matt Engard for the murder. And this is her crime. What? How is this possible? I mean, wasn't Miss Andrews supposed to be the real murderer? Mr. Wright, please get over your shock and commence with cross-examination. My crime. But you could tell from the state of the room it was in that there must have been a fight. Are you telling the truth when you say that you did not know he was dead? He had a scarf tied around his neck, but that scarf is part of the Jammin' Ninja costume, so I didn't think anything about it was strange. His head was also tilted down a bit, so I couldn't see his face that well. That's why I thought I'd wake him up and went to pour the juice. What is this plan you had? Ooh. I knew right away the murderer was Matt. I knew because, one, he was going to expose Matt's weakest weak point to the world. So Matt did this to stop Jan, Juan, and silence him for good. I'm going through names. That's when I thought I should forge some evidence and pin the crime on Matt. The forged pieces of evidence were the knife and the button. The first thing that came to mind was to plant the knife. That was so you could get the knife, correct? The knife Matt used at dinner had his fingerprints all over it. I thought if I used that, then the police would certainly turn their eyes towards him. Matt was napping with his costume on at the time. I slipped in, took the knife, and returned to the scene of the crime. Then I stabbed Juan with the dead body with the knife and ripped off the button. So you're the one who stabbed the victim with that knife? It gives me goosebumps to think about it now, what a horrible thing I did. But at the time I couldn't control my own body, it moved on its own. Then when I stabbed Juan's dead body, I suddenly realized something. If I used the button somehow, I could make Matt look even more suspect. So you thought to rip off one of the buttons and then plant it in Mr. Engard's hakama. Yes, that's what I plan to do. But things never go that smoothly, do they? Excuse me. Just when I finished and was returning to my room, I had a bit of inconvenience. An inconvenience? There was a woman with a camera at the ready, loitering in the hallway. I'm willing to bet my spikes it was Lana. There was also a woman with a ray gun at the ready, pacing back and forth. And that's Miss Oldbag for you. I had already been caught and made into a big scoop for a certain weekly tabloid once, so I couldn't very well go out looking like myself and get caught again. That's why I ended up using the Nickel Samurai costume. You were the one who prepared the costume, weren't you? Yes, I took it from Global Studios. I also put it into Juan's guitar case the day before the awards ceremony. You did this in preparation for the press conference, correct? Yes, Juan wanted to wear that costume and hold a press conference in it. He was going to disclose Matt's biggest secret there. And what is his secret? That I don't know. Anyway, I thought that if I were to leave Juan's room in the Nickel Samurai costume, then people would think that Matt was the real murderer. I was very careful not to leave any fingerprints when I opened the guitar case. I absolutely did not want anyone to know about the costume. I think we've heard enough. So after that, you went back to Mr. Engard's room and planted the button? Into Matt's Hakama? Yes. After that, I folded up the costume I was wearing and put it into a bag. Then I snuck it out of the hotel and got rid of it. But my word, what does all this mean? Mr. Edgeworth, is it? The real criminal is Matt Engard. Yesterday, that woman prosecutor sat me down for a talk. Francesca, huh? She said that I should, under no circumstances, confess to what I had done. That if I just kept quiet, then Matt would be found guilty for sure. I had no choice but to believe in her words. What this witness has done is clearly unlawful. However, as long as her testimony stands, we can be certain that she is not the real killer. But wait, Your Honor. The defense still... Right. It's pointless. At this point in time, it is not possible to indict Miss Andrews on anything. Indict? Yes, exactly. There isn't a single piece of evidence that points her as a murderer. The cross-examination of this witness is over, and so is today's trial. You couldn't establish that the witness was a culprit. Please let it go, Mr. Wright. Mr. Edgeworth, please place Mrs. Andrews under arrest for further questioning. Understood, Your Honor. The prosecution will arrange for her detention immediately. That is all. Court is adjourned for today. Drama. Nice chair. Today's trial, it's over. And I didn't win an acquittal. Witness, would you mind if I asked you something? Edgeworth? What is it? Before you leave the court today, I wondered if you might look at one thing. The card in your hand. I had my interest for quite some time now. What exactly is it? Oh, this? Mr. Wright also asked about this. Although I didn't remember it at the time you asked me about it, Mr. Wright. I remember just now. I found this in the room on that day. The room? That day? Yes. I found this card when I discovered Juan's body. It was lying there next to him. You found that card next to the victim's body? I suppose I must have unconsciously slipped it into my pocket. But it's not as if this card is an irrelevance to Juan's murder, right? Yeah, I guess not, but it's still a strange card if you ask me. But as far as a clue to this case, I don't see why. Mia? Witness, that card, give it to me, hurry. Edgeworth? Do you have any idea what you have stupidly yet inadvertently done? I can't believe that you hid this from me all this time. I didn't mean to. What is this all about? I've never seen Edgeworth so emotional before. Yes, we have. That card, what in the world is it and what does it mean? To be continued.